Hey guys, this is Sarah. Thanks for joining the channel. If this is your first video, I help people move to Costa Rica, and today we're going to be talking about an overview of, well, the property purchase process. So it's not going to be every tiny little nut and bolt of the whole process, but it's going to be a pretty decent overview that I hope will educate you on how property purchase is done here in Costa Rica. And if you are new to this channel, then, well, hi, I'm Sarah. Definitely subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure that you get notified of future videos. If you are thinking about moving here to Costa Rica, the rest of the channel has lots of info for you. I personally, my company, we do work one-on-one with people. I have my new DIY course that came out, which is for more of the I want to do it myself kind of people, but you might need an extra leg up. And we have these amazing retreats, in-person events where you get to meet all the experts, and we have a really amazing week together in Costa Rica. So let's get into the content. So we're going to be talking about right now the overview of the property purchase process in Costa Rica. So the first thing that I do want to mention to you is that, yes, you can buy property here in Costa Rica. If you didn't already know, even if you come in on a tourist visa before you get your residency, it doesn't matter if you're a resident, if you're a national, you have the same rights to purchase property here in the country as a Costa Rican national. So even if you're here on a tourist visa, you do have that right to purchase property. And the properties that we're going to be talking about in this video would maybe be lots or like a home for sale. So a little bit about the process. Okay, I'm going to share my iPad here so that we can kind of, if you're a note-taking person and you like to take notes, and hopefully this will be helpful for you. So, number one in your property purchase process is you're going to be, conducting your property search. Okay, so conducting your property search. So this can be done through a real estate agent. Just be mindful that a lot of real estate agents just have a certain zone that they are focusing on. So I guess number one, you should really be narrowing down your area. If you're confused about areas, I have a lot of other videos on this topic about, what to be looking for in an area for living, or maybe you're really just looking into an area for investment. But number one would be actually conducting your property search, choosing your area as to where you're going to be searching for properties. So that can be done through a real estate agent, or you can do it on your own. So I just did it on my own. I did not use a real estate agent to find the properties that I ended up purchasing. What you really do need is a superstar attorney, and we will talk about that as well. So number one, conducting your property search. Number two, as I mentioned, you need to work with, and I call them, a superstar attorney. So important. So important. You need to be working with a superstar attorney. Superstar. Because you want to make sure that nothing is screwed up during this process. You want to make sure that your attorney has your back. This would be an attorney that should not be the seller's attorney. I would never, ever recommend to be working with the same attorney as the seller of the property. So do not work with the seller's attorney, but make sure that you do locate your own superstar attorney. How would you might do that? Well, if you're working with us, then we have ones that we can refer you that we know are superstars. But if you're not, then you should definitely go based off of personal recommendations from others. That's really important. Also to note, some real estate offices might have their own in-house attorney. You could look into using theirs as well. And one thing that I always did when I was, looking on things on my own, with my superstar attorney, so I might find a property, and I was looking for lots when I did mine. So I would do what I kind of called like pre-due diligence. So, do some, pre-due diligence. So the due diligence period, you really officially enter that period after you've actually chosen a property, you've signed a purchase option, which we'll talk about, and then you're in the period of due diligence. But for me personally, I wanted to make sure that a property was worth me going through that prior to doing any of that. So when I was looking at lots, that would be me making sure that the property has electricity. I would ask to see the water letter, because without those, I already, I need those. You need those for permits, especially if you're going to be building. I would always ask for the uso del suelo. So that's like, it's called use of the soil. Use of the soil. So that tells you what you can and can't do with a property. So let's say for mine in particular, I could only build 2 stories. It tells you how far back you construct, how far to the side, you know, it kind of gives you that parameters and what you can and can't do with the property. What's the percentage that you're able to construct on the property? Again, like I can't do 3 stories here where I am, but I can do 2. So it tells you a lot what you want to do. So especially if you're buying a lot, you want to have a good, clear picture in mind too. What do you want to do with that property? So when you're looking at properties, you can think, you know, you can kind of bring that into perspective and go, oh, okay, well, if I can't, for example, on my property, I'll use my stuff as an example a lot. So on my property, I can't build 2 homes on this property. On this one titled lot, I can't build 2 homes. When I built my 2 homes, I bought 2 separate titled lots. 1 home on one home on the other. In this area, you know, due to my uso del suelo, we can have 1 residence on this property. So I can't build apartments here. So if my goal was to build apartments on this lot, this would not have been a good property to choose. So the uso del suelo, just making sure that that really does match up with what you want to do with your property, because if it doesn't, then again, there's no real use for you moving forward and doing further research into that property. And I will get into some house stuff too. So we will talk about houses as well, but this is kind of has to pertain with lots, but also good. These are things that you should be looking for in a home as well. Especially, what if you did want to add on to the property? Or what if you want to make an addition? What if you want to make a separate mother's-in-law suite, you know, somewhere on the other side of the property? So these are still things that you should be looking for with a home as well. Another thing I would always ask for would be the plano catastro. So that's like the survey, you know, it's like the land survey. Yeah, it's like the survey plan. Survey plan, excuse my handwriting on my iPad. So it's like your survey plan. So you need to have, I would always want to see the plano catastro that tells you, you know, how many square meters or, you know, acres is the property. It gives you the information. You know, I would want the finca fila number so that we could look it up in the registry. So this number is basically like the social security number of properties and how they're identified here. It's like what distinguishes one property from another. So with that, you can look it up in the National Registry, see if, you know, the titling information, or have your attorney do that. So then that's what I would do. I would have my attorney look it up in the National Registry to make sure there's no big major red flags. So that was some of like the pre-due diligence that I would do on a lot. Now there are some things, and then so now for homes, and this is just kind of to add on to the other list. Some of this you might do after you've done the purchase option. Your lawyer might say, hey, you should request more items. These are just, again, this is just kind of an overview. But for homes, you're still going to want that, you know, that National Registry record. You're going to want, you know, this part of this will be part of the due diligence, but you're going to want a letter showing that the taxes are up to date, because you don't want to buy a property where all the property taxes aren't up to date at all. That would not be. And then you can actually see, you know, you can ask them how much they're actually paying. A lot of times your lawyer will request, you know, that you should see the last water payment. Actually, I'll say and electricity, because you want to make sure those are up to date as well. You don't want something that's been behind on all their payments. If they're in an HOA, you'll want a letter from the HOA stating that they're up to date on all their dues. So that would be important too, because again, you don't want to buy a property where they are not up to date at all on all their HOA dues, and that wouldn't be fun. That would not be fun at all, again, because you don't want to inherit a property or buy a property that now has all these extra bills added onto it. You know, another thing, since it's a house that you might request, could be blueprints, and last would be the permits. So like this is examples, like for the house that I have for sale, I have, you know, all that, the blueprints, the permits, you know, all those items all ready to go. And by permits, I mean, you know, construction. There have been times where I have talked to clients that, you know, owners they couldn't find record of their construction permits, or gosh, I guess in this instance, there was a flood in the office of the town, so now the permits are gone. So if that's the case, talk to your lawyer to see what the best route forward is in that case. But these are just, again, some common things. Another thing, again, this wouldn't happen until after you've signed the purchase agreement. So some of these items you're not going to be getting until you set up the purchase agreement. But another thing that would be good to do afterward would be to do a home inspection. Also for lots, you could actually have a surveyor come out and make sure that all the boundaries and the limits are right. You know, that's another good one that you could do for lots too, to protect yourself. Okay, so what do the next steps look like? So let's say you found your property, you've done some of that pre-due diligence. Again, some of those items might actually happen more after you've actually signed a purchase option. Well, now it's time to put in an offer. So step 6, you're gonna put in an offer. Maybe you'll go back and forth. Maybe maybe they have a real estate agent that they're dealing with, or maybe you're going with them one-on-one. That's what I did. Put in an offer. Hey, I'll give you this. They can either reject or, you know, once you guys finally come to an agreement, then it is time to have your attorney make the purchase option. So now, attorney, and that's called an opción de compra here in Costa Rica. So that means that you are saying, I would like to buy this house. Really, what's in or what's not in the purchase option, again, discuss that with your lawyer based on your situation and what's best. Typically, the seller is going to want usually a 5 to 10% deposit into an escrow account. Escrow accounts are so important. So now you're going to want to open an escrow account. So now we don't want to just give this money to the owner, because how do we know you're ever going to get that back? So the point of the purchase option is that now the owner can't just go sell the house out from under you. You're saying, I would like to buy this house. If everything checks out the way that it's supposed to, via the terms that are in the purchase option, then I'm going to proceed with the house purchase, and I'll deposit the rest of the money into escrow, and then we can have a closing date. So then that's when the real due diligence period of the property purchase actually begins. So again, usually this will be like 5 to 10% down in earnest money that's going to go into the account. You're going to kind of set that due diligence period. How long is that due diligence period going to be? Is it going to be 30 days, 40 days, 45 days, 60 days? I mean, it can be kind of flexible. And sometimes a lot of that is how prepared is the seller with all the paperwork that you are going to be requesting for the due diligence period. You will be surprised. There are so many sellers here who are not prepared at all. They have their house for sale, but they're not actually prepared with the documents. That's what happened with me and my lots. It was pretty frustrating. I felt like I had to run around and gather things that, you know, I didn't even really shouldn't have had to been doing. But sometimes that can happen. And some things, you know, I couldn't obtain. The owner had to do it. So I had to keep being, hey, you got that thing yet? Hey, do you want to sell this, basically? So just keep in mind, too, that some owners may actually not be very prepared for their sale, and that can happen. So you'll have to have some patience, which is why sometimes there's not always a quick closing. And again, the reason why you're going to always deposit into escrow, we want to always use escrow, so that, let's say you put in that 5 to 10% and the home inspection comes back horrific, or it turns out there's a lien on the property, like, you know, from the bank or something, or there's some kind of dispute, you're going to get that money back. Now the escrow company is that third party that's holding the money that's going to say, oh, okay, we'll do the contract. Now the potential buyer is we're going to refund their money, and that's it. Now you can move on to another property that you might be interested in. So that's why escrow accounts are so important. I can't stress them enough. So now step 9, now you know the lawyer will have been completing the due diligence. So now the lawyer is completing due diligence. Given that everything went well, the home inspection went well, you got all the paperwork that you needed to really move forward with the sale that was requested by your lawyer, and everything really does check out. Step 10, well, you know, now you're going to have your closing date. So it's exciting. Now you're going to get ready for your closing date of your property, which is really exciting. So you'll be transferring the rest of the money into the escrow and, you know, at the closing date. So, and then you'll have your closing date. So then you have your closing date. And what happens at the closing date? That's when, you know, you all are there. You're meeting, you know, probably at the lawyer's office. You're all there in person together, and you're going to sign the papers. So the lawyer, usually if you don't speak Spanish, the lawyer should also be printing out your contract for you and reading it to you in English. The contracts are completely read. They're going to be, you need to check to make sure everything's correct on there. Your ID number, your name, you know, all the information and that's there in the contract needs to be correct. And then given that everything is perfect and fine, you both are going to sign, and then you have officially, you know, bought the property. And then your lawyer is going to call the escrow company, tell the escrow company to go ahead and release the funds to the seller's account. And congratulations, you're the owner now. So then what the lawyer is going to do is they're going to go ahead and register and, you know, make sure that the property will show up titled to you. So hopefully that's a good little overview for you, just to kind of, again, there's a lot of little nuances and pieces that go into it with property purchase, but that's just kind of the general overview for you and how things are done here in Costa Rica. If you found this information helpful, make sure to put a a like there. If you got a question, go ahead and put a comment. And if you want more information on moving to Costa Rica, hit the subscribe bell, check out the rest of the channel, and make sure to check out all the different services that we have down there below in the description for you. All right, thanks again. See you in the next video.